Today, we're going to be talking about wrestling. And I'm not talking about like a onesie tight bulge in the area, more like a steroided up, slathered in oil. You know what? Just run the intro. There is true literary power that can be learned from professional wrestling. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, wrestling's fake, it's blah, 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 blah. But the truth is it is a well-scripted but free-flowing story. It's the kind of story that evolves in the moment. It's the kind of story that you should be writing. I mean, you should let your story flow. I mean, it's got to stay on track, right? But you got to have room for flexibility, and that is truly where professional wrestling shines, is in its flexibility, its ability to act in the moment, its ability to go with the flow. So basically, just so you're aware, there is, they know who's gonna win, they know who's gonna lose, right? They know kind of sort of what's gonna happen, but the rest is kind of done off of the cuff. It's kind of like a freestyle rapper almost. And to be honest with you, you need to understand that when you're writing your story, if you're not going free flow, then you're actually over scripting it. So the devil is in the details, and he will take you to hell if you spend too much time on them. The details are something that can be fleshed out as you're pounding on the keys. If you know your story well enough, then you shouldn't have to pre-script out every detail. Now, details are important, I get it, but unless the small ones directly affect your story, don't waste time on them in the planning stage. It's kind of overkill, right? So yeah, major details like, where the knife got hid, or where he stabbed him in the neck and how the blood sprayed on the wall. I know it's a little gruesome, but just bear with me. How the blood sprayed on the wall actually gave away the actions of the murderer to the detective who was trying to solve the crime. That kind of detail is important, right? But whether his shoelaces were laced up in the over or the under pattern, that doesn't really matter unless it is directly affecting your storyline. You should totally know the major points, but you need to be flexible on the minor stuff. I mean, forcing it into a box can backfire on you. I mean, it can absolutely backfire on you, because if you are so hardwired into this one detail, then you may actually have problems fitting the rest of the story around that one detail. So be flexible about the minor details. I mean, the major details are kind of important, so stick with those, but the minor details, you really have to be flexible with them. And that was what was absolutely fantastic about professional wrestling. I mean, these guys would know kind of sort of what was going to happen. They knew what the outcome needed to be, and maybe they knew the moves that got into that outcome. But they all spoke the same. They all speak the same language, right? They all speak the same physical language. So that gives them the ability to improvise in the moment. And that's what you should be doing when you're banging on the keys. But if you're focused so heavy on the detail, if you're focused on the slight infraction of the minor enunciation of the third word in the second paragraph of the elven language that nobody even understands, that's just kind of overkill. So the beauty about wrestling was that it was all about drama, cause and effect, and the underdog's rise to power. And those things should always be in your story, right? So your underdog, your character is always faced with a very difficult situation, right? And you should make sure that difficult situation really keeps your hero down until it's time to rise. There needs to be drama in your story. If there's not drama in your story, what the hell are you writing for, right? I mean, even historical fiction has drama. We didn't know how the soldiers of the 3rd Battle and the 2nd Battalion were going to turn out, but in the middle of the devilish firefight, they actually broke out of their foxholes and went over and destroyed the opposing army. It was truly a dramatic moment. We didn't know what the hell was going to happen. You got to have drama in your story. And also, you have to understand and sometimes even explain cause and effect. Cause and effect ultimately will drive a story. So you need to be aware of those things, and you should always try to put those in your story. And that's another thing that I loved about professional wrestling, was their stories had all that in it all the time. All that in it all the time. There was always drama. There was always cause and effect. And the underdog was always fighting for the win. You might not have seen it in the match, but you definitely saw it in the story arc. The way that always worked was in the face of unthinkable opposition, the babyface, or the hero, comes through at the last minute and redeems himself against the heel or the villain, right? I mean, there's always like, they're getting pummeled, they're getting just overdone, overkilled, and you know, there's like 87 guys in the ring and they're all stomping the crap out of him, and the good guy, the underdog, is just getting the crap beat out of him. And then all of a sudden in the last minute, things turn around, right? And that is truly a powerful moment in storytelling. When you have your hero, when you have your character, and they have just been through fucking hell, man. I mean, just, they've had the crap kicked out of them, and they are down on their luck, and they're in their very last breath moment. And then all of a sudden, they get that surge of, I've gotta be good. I've gotta uphold. I have to defend what is right. And then all of a sudden, they jump up and start kicking the crap out of everybody. Those are those redeeming moments that you have to have. And you'll notice that those things are all over professional wrestling. Like, if you just take a few minutes and just watch like 3 or 4 matches, man, and you'll start to see that trend in the way that they do those stories. Think of every hero in every story you've ever loved. It's all about that last minute victory. If that last minute victory doesn't come in, then there's no sense of like, there's no sitting on the edge of your seat wondering what the hell is gonna happen. As a writer, it is your job to keep the reader on the edge of their seats. It doesn't matter what genre you're writing, right? You have to keep the reader engaged, and keeping them on the edge of their seats means they're either leaning forward going, what is this gonna be? Or they're like, oh my God, is he gonna die? Is he gonna kill everybody? What's gonna happen? Look, ultimately, they know the hero is gonna win. They just don't know how, right? And that's how you do it. You have to keep them on the edge of their seats. And that's what professional wrestling was so good at. They could fill an arena night after night, and every single night they would keep the viewers, the patrons, the fans, whoever came to the show, and the people that turned it on the TV on the edge of their seats wondering what the hell was gonna happen. And whenever it happened, it was huge. It was exciting. I mean, it was the biggest thing of the night when you saw those moments. You didn't know how it was going to happen, but you just knew the hero had to win at the end. However, I do have to say this. There's a little bit of caution that comes in this. So those special moments, those Hail Mary moves, they were always saved for the biggest and best matches, right? So there was like the warm-up matches, and then there was like the big bad matches to where you're following like this big long story arc. But they always saved those last minute hero's gonna win matches for the very, very end, or for the biggest and baddest events like WrestleMania or something like that. You know, you saw your hero's rise to power, right? Or your hero's long journey of coming from an unknown or coming from a weak spot, turning into this powerful character that deserves to be revered in the face of opposition. But they always said, and they'll have their final match in frickin' WrestleMania 9 trillion. And everybody tuned into WrestleMania. They had that stuff on lock. I almost said they had that on lock, but they had that stuff on lock. They knew what they were doing, right? They were building this story. They were some excellent storytellers, and you could learn a thing or two from them. So wrestling always had and still has this kind of cadence to it, right? There was kind of this flow to the story, and I'm not talking about the flow to the moves. I'm talking about if you get into the ring, right? There's a flow to it. If you're watching the action, there is a flow to how this entire thing goes off, right? So like the hero will come in and he'll show off, right? And he'll be like, oh yeah, look, I got this move. I've gotten so much better. I've improved. I've got so much fire in my heart. Here's a freaking this, and here's a snap suplex, and here's a freaking powerbomb, and I'm off the top rope. But then the villain always did something dirty and underhanded, right? And in that dirty and underhanded movement, he got the advantage on the hero. But then the hero always comes back despite the odds and saves the day, right? So there's that cadence to it, and it's there in almost every single one. Now, there are caveats to that. You will see matches to where they will build up the villain, right? So say the villain is part of some other arc, right? Some other long arching story arc, and they had a ton of them, right? So the villain would actually come in and he would win matches because they're trying to build his character. They're trying to make him look like a threat to your hero. So they would put him in these other BS matches where he would just stomp the crap out of everybody. And then the two would ultimately meet and collide in WrestleMania 12 Trillion. But another good thing about those long arching storylines was it gave the good guy a chance to make some powerful friends, right? There were always people that came in the very craziest moment to lend the hero a hand, and it was a powerful hand. I mean, sometimes these people that would come out of the back, so like, you know, the hero's getting the crap kicked out of him by like 12 freaking people in the ring, and then all of a sudden out of the back come like two dudes, right? And they come running and they dive into the ring, they slide in. You know what I'm talking about. They slide in, right? They slide in and they start stomping the crap out of everybody. And that's called a hot tag, kind of. I mean, it's a saving moment when they come out of the back. If it's a tag team match, it's when you finally get to tag your partner. But that hot tag where everybody comes in and just kicks the crap out of bad guys. You need to put those allies in your story, right? Those allies are actually really, really important to a story because the hero can't do it all himself. If he can do it all himself, then why the hell are you reading the story? What's the point? Here's something that you never really knew about wrestling that actually can help you so much in writing. And it's a weird concept, so just stick with me. The most powerful character in the wrestling world was the referee. He represented the rules. He set forth the order to the world and was always working to keep that order in line. He was generally an unbiased character. He tended to chastise the hero for breaking the rules more than the villain, though. So, I mean, he was unbiased, like everybody's got to follow the rules, right? Blah, 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 blah. Out of the corner, get him out of the corner. No closed fists, no hitting him in the face, no kicking him in the nuts, whatever it was. But he always chastised the hero, the face, more than the villain, the heel. And the reason was it gives you a different way of measuring your heroes and your villains, right? He was ultimately there to serve that hidden purpose. He gave you a perspective of what was right and what was wrong. And so it's kind of like the ground rules for everything. And when you're writing, you need to set some ground rules. You need to have a referee in the ring. You gotta have that way to say that what this person is doing is wrong and it's wrong for everybody. But this guy tends to step out of line more than this guy. However, when the good guy steps out of line, I give him a harder time than I do the bad guy. Because that's kind of the way the world works. The bad guys get away with shit that we don't all get away with, and it's because they're not scared to break the rules. You could ultimately always tell who the good guy in a match was because the heroes didn't break the rules. Even if it cost them the match, the heroes didn't break the rules. They may bend them, they don't break them. Ultimately, it was that referee that was the one that put the match to rest. When the 1, 2, 3 came down, it was the referee that was in there, right? He's the one who brought that particular story to a close. You are the referee, right? You are the referee when you are writing. Now, you can put referees into your story, people that will, you know, sort of force the character to maintain certain rules and regulations and things like that, but you are ultimately the one that brings it to a close. When the 1, 2, 3 comes down, it's you that's counting the 1, 2, 3. So remember, you are the referee. You are the hidden character in your story. You are the one that creates the world and lays the rules. But did you ever notice the heels, the bad guys, would often knock out the ref or get him distracted, right? They would keep his attention over here, or they would knock him out while the bad guy was getting the upper hand or doing something dirty, right? And that's how they would continue the storyline. So like at the end of my first book, I did this. I actually did this. So if you haven't read my books, I'm going to spoil something for you right here. Put your fingers in your ears and go la, 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 la. In that story, at the very end, the bad guy comes in, suspends the ref, like knocks the ref out, rips off the dude's head and takes the body and ditches, right? So that's how I continued the story, was by making it so that the referee, me, couldn't say, story's done. So following the wrestling model is a great way to frame your story and tell multiple different stories inside of that framing. So my advice is, if you don't know anything about wrestling or you want to see what I'm talking about, take some time, go somewhere else on YouTube after you've watched this video, or maybe a few more of my videos, and go watch some wrestling matches. Try watching just a few of them and you'll start to see exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So remember, you gotta have good guys, you gotta have bad guys. The bad guys have gotta have the upper hand sometimes. The good guys have to struggle. It's part of the story. And the referee, you are the person that dictates who's good, who's bad, and you lay the framework for perspective. So that having been said, I'm gonna put a video on the screen and you should go and watch that video. And if you haven't subscribed, there's also a little button somewhere around here, and you should click on that button. You can also follow me on my Instagrams, my Twitters. Go to my site, 12blackandpedals.com. Pick out that book. Listen to some of my stories. I also run a podcast. It's all awesome. I'll see you in the next video.